Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And here we are, another season, another theme with the Camellias Bloom podcast. As our community continues to blossom and bloom, I've decided to center this season around the topics of diversity and community. TCB, the Camellias Bloom, has become such a diverse community, so why not make this season all about that? Season 3 will not only cover the topic of cultural diversity, but we'll also cover a general garden full of diverse topics that affect the Muslim community in one way or another. What does that entail? Well, grab your cup of Halal Goodness and join us for this season with your host, Khadija. Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
So, welcome to this week's episode. And I have our very lovely admin, Anna, with us today. Alhamdulillah. Today, we're going to be sort of, I guess it'll be more like a interviewee podcast episode because I would like to know more about how you became Muslim, and I'd love to learn more about Spain and Islam in Spain, and what it's like to be living in Spain as a Muslim. So let's get started. Okay, so as everybody who I guess is part of the TCB community knows that we've got some new admins, and Anna is one of them. So welcome, Anna, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Anna. I'm from Spain. I'm 20 years old. I'm a university student. I study Chinese and Korean language and literature. And
Amazing.
I converted about 6 months ago.
Oh, 6 months? You little baby. That's so cute. Okay, so
I think it's a bit more than 6 months. Yeah.
Really?
Maybe 7 even.
Well, I mean, under a year. Under a year. So how is that going so far? This is not part of the question, but how is it going so far?
Well, it's going well. I mean, for now it's in secret. For now it's a secret. Like nobody in my real life knows. So it's like I have to pray in secret, and
that's definitely
it's a bit tricky, especially when I'm at my parents' house.
Yeah, I bet.
But but it will improve.
Inshallah, yes.
Inshallah.
I mean, you're so like brand new, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just take your time. I mean, at least alhamdulillah, you're praying, you know how to pray.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so how did you learn about Islam?
Well, I'm in a long distance relationship, and he's from Algeria. He's Muslim, born Muslim. So after a while, I decided that I wanted to learn more about his culture, and that also involved learning about his religion. So that's how I started reading about Islam. And obviously, it wasn't one of those situations where people are like, "Oh, you converted for a man." Right. Obviously not. But
of course not.
I did start learning about it because of him, and I eventually made the decision to convert, and it has helped me a lot with the being patient.
Oh, yes. Was there like a turning point? Like during your research, was there anything that was kind of like, wow? So what were you before? Like Catholic?
Well, I was raised in a Catholic family, but my parents are not. They don't really practice, and neither did I. Okay. And we did celebrate like Christmas and Easter, but I was never really Catholic at all. I mean, I wasn't even baptized, so But we did do like Catholic stuff. So,
like I guess the Christmas stuff.
Yeah, and I went to a Catholic private school. So.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, that were fun times.
So, okay, so you didn't really practice anything.
Anything, yeah.
So was there like a turning point when you were studying the religion and you're like, oh wow, like this really makes sense to me. Like let me
It
become Muslim.
started feeling like it brought me comfort,
Oh wow,
that
okay.
I had something to fall back on. Like before, like, I don't know, I felt a bit like I was floating in the middle of nowhere,
Right,
And
freestyle.
yeah. And this kind of gave me like a bit of stability in my mental health, which I don't know, I think it's really important. So that was the turning point.
Wow. Okay, so you're like, did you read the Quran at all?
Not entirely, but I did read part of it.
Oh, that's like me too. Okay, very, very interesting. Like you said, like it gave you comfort and stuff, but what was like okay, I need to like become Muslim now? Because actually, you messaged us on Instagram. I keep forgetting that.
In December last year.
Yeah,
actually,
wow.
When I came back from Algeria, like I really started, I don't know, I really liked it there, and I liked seeing Muslims.
Really?
And I thought, wow, I want to be like this. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I remember you messaged me, or you messaged TCB and I replied to you.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, so cute. And then you messaged me like, I guess a couple months later, like, I'm Muslim now. You saw like other Muslims and you felt like, wow, they're really
Yeah, and I don't know, I have
welcoming.
this feeling like if I die tomorrow, I want to die a Muslim.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, smart girl.
Because at first I was like, well, I'll do it eventually,
Right.
But then I was like, what's the point in postponing it? Like, let's just do it now.
Right. Alhamdulillah. Smart girl. Tell us a little bit about how it was like growing up in Spain. Like, what was that like?
Well, like I said before, like my family is Catholic, like most families in Spain.
Right.
My grandmother was very Catholic. She went to church and everything. But my parents didn't really practice. And well, we celebrated like Catholic culture. Like I was more culturally Catholic than actually Catholic, So we did like Christmas, Easter, All Saints Day, and the Epiphany, which are the important ones in Spain.
Right.
And like, for example, in my parents, they didn't really transmit like the importance of religion, but they did made a point of teaching me like the influence of religion in Spanish art and literature.
Right.
Which for me, it was very important because it allowed me to have a positive idea of religion, even though I really didn't practice anything,
Right.
And then I went to a Catholic school.
Right. I guess that's like just sort of like the norm, right? Like
not really. I mean, because there are lots of public schools. This one was
so why did they put you in private school?
Well, I still don't really know, but back then I think it was the school where I could get the best education.
Okay.
At the time. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And well, it wasn't one of those schools with nuns. It was Catholic, but it didn't have nuns. We had religion class, and by when I was little, like until the age 8, I thought I was late in the sense that I thought I had been baptized and all that. But when I was 8, that's the year when they made us do like the first communion.
Oh, wow.
My parents didn't agree to it because they didn't want me to do that. That's when I realized, like, wait, am I Catholic? And I realized I wasn't, because they made us bring photos from our baptisms to class. And I was like, wait, I don't have those photos. So I had a bit of a crisis there when I was 8. You don't know anything and you don't have the resources to do anything. So I was also bullied a bit because I was the only non-Catholic there. So at that point, I started getting like a negative idea of religion because it was what I was being bullied for.
Right.
And also, I looking back, like we were taught a very like child-friendly version of religion. So, for example, we did like Christmas plays. Everyone had to do something in the play. Everyone wanted to be Mary, but it was always the blonde girls who got to be Mary, you know, because Mary was probably blonde. You know,
Oh
born
my
in Palestine, she
gosh.
was probably blonde.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And so I never got to do Mary, obviously. I look too Mediterranean, you know. Uh, so I was always like the shepherd or the sailor or the dwarf. And if you're wondering why are there sailors and dwarf in a Christmas play, I don't know. Nobody knew. I was just a sailor, and I brought fish.
Okay.
And I had a funny sailor sweater. So yeah, it was very like, well, let's do things that the children are going to like, even though it doesn't really make sense. Even though, yeah. And then in religion class, we were taught like Bible stories. So I remember one in particular, like the story of Yusuf.
Right.
And we were taught, but it was like Joseph had a lot of brothers. And I remember the image in the book. It was like the 12 brothers standing in line, like the tallest one and the shortest one, like all like little babies with baby faces.
Oh my gosh,
really ridiculous.
That was so weird. Yeah.
And yeah, it was all a bit like that. So yeah, I don't know. I got a very childlike version of everything.
Right.
Which
like a watered down child version.
My father still complains about it because when I go to a museum, there are a lot of art that's inspired by religious themes. And I'm always asking, well, not now, but a few years ago, I was always asking him, like, what's this, what's that? And he's like, didn't you learn religion in school? Like, what did they teach you? And I'm like, good question. I got this image of religion that wasn't really accurate. And I was also feeling left out of the whole thing. So yeah, it was a bit boring. Yeah. I remember that year when they did the first communion, I didn't have to do anything. So I just sat and read comic books.
Okay.
And then like, I think in Spain, even though historically it's a really important Catholic country, right now, young people are mostly atheists. And they kind of use like religion as a scapegoat for all the problems.
Really?
Yeah. And I also think this is something that I've observed, but maybe I'm wrong, that it's just the idea I get. Like they see religion as something that belonged to the parents or their grandparents. And yeah, and they think, well, we're so much more evolved. We're so much smarter. We don't need that. That's for old people. We're superior. I'm like, you're gonna go far.
So religion is like it's like more a traditional thing. Only old people do that.
Yeah, and I've seen people my age laughing at their grandparents because they go to mass. Which to me, it's really offensive, even though I'm not Catholic, but like, first, that's your grandfather, respect him. Second, that's your culture also, even if you don't like it, it's still your culture.
Yeah, that's like a lot of young kids are like that. Even like Muslim kids, you know? Is it difficult to live in Spain, you think, as like a practicing Muslim or like a visibly practicing Muslim? Like, do you see hijabis?
I do see hijabis, but I think because I live in a very small city in the north, there's less amount of Muslims. I think in the south or in bigger cities, there's a bigger Muslim community. Here, like you do see it, but it's, well, just maybe you go out and you see 2 hijabis. But if you go out in the south, like you see maybe 20 hijabis, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so because in the majority of the Muslim population, are immigrants from Morocco, so the south is closer to Morocco, so it makes sense that the majority of it's there. And then as you go upwards to the north, like it decreases a lot. And if you go to the north, the part that's more in the north, like you barely see any hijabis. So yeah, that's a really big difference between big cities and cities in the south and like small cities. So where I live, because it's a small city in the north, there's a lack of resources and support. Like there's a mosque, but it's really small. It has no women's section. And if you walk 2 steps forward, like there's nothing else. It's the edge of the town, literally.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
So, and for example, it's really hard to find halal anything.
Oh, I bet.
Like I've only seen one product that was halal anything, and it was ramen.
Oh.
So,
oh.
and there are no restaurants or anything. So yeah, fun time.
So what do you eat? Like, do you eat seafood or like veggies? Or
I eat a lot of seafood. Yeah, and there is one butcher, like halal butcher. It's in the middle of nowhere also.
Wow.
Yeah, it's next to the mosque. So yeah, middle of nowhere.
But
So
you
I
can go there. That's how far is it?
30 minutes for a small town in Spain, that's far.
Wow.
But yeah, I go sometimes because I like meat.
Yeah, of course. Balance. So you take the bus there?
Yes.
Wow. That's crazy.
It is crazy. And there's like, I don't think there's like as much Islamophobia as there maybe is in France, but I do think there's a bit of it mixed with like racism. So like the problem is not that they're Muslims, it's that they're North African, you know? Well, also a bit that they're Muslims, right, according to people. But that's basically with all people. Like one of my grandmothers, she was very much like that. She lived in the south, and she used to tell me, like, don't go across this street because that's where the Muslims live. And I was like, okay, sure. It's a bit challenging, but well, I mean, I make the best of it.
Yeah, good. And I think because it's challenging, like it allows you to sort of like take it easy. Like if everything was like so easily accessible and you had so much of everything, like I don't know, it would make you, I think like now you just sort of appreciate the process more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I get so happy when I see something halal.
Yeah, and it allows you to be like, oh, I can't wait, inshallah, like when I'm around like more options and Muslims and stuff, you know?
For example, like I said before, nobody in my day-to-day life knows that I'm Muslim.
Right.
And people my age, at least people in my circle, they're pretty accepting of Muslims. But I'm not sure how they would react to their friend suddenly being Muslim.
Right.
You know? Like that's the difference between someone who's already Muslim since forever and someone who's like suddenly Muslim. Like, yeah, you know? So yeah, that's also a bit challenging. I've had a lot of moments where I've wanted to tell my best friend and I'm like, yeah, girl, I have to tell you something. And like, then I chicken out and I'm like, well, you know, this teacher, yeah, she's been really mean lately. Yeah, she almost, failed me the other day. Yeah, because I'm really chicken for these things. Like I get scared, like no.
I think you're doing really well though. Like, I mean, you've only been Muslim for like not even a year, and it's like just half a year, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So like just slowly but surely, inshallah.
Yes, I mean the most important is that like you have a base that's like very stable, and
Yes, exactly.
continue building on that.
That's right. Like what TCB is about, building the foundation.
If you start doing everything at the beginning, like that's not going to continue long term, because
Exactly.
you're going to get exhausted.
I think it's really good that, like, I feel like some of the newer generation converts, like your generation, like you guys are sort of seeing our, like, what you shouldn't do. Like you're seeing that, like, oh, when you convert, like you shouldn't be doing these things. You know what I mean? Like what's available out there now? Like I wish there was this kind of information, like when I first converted, like, you know, like take it slowly. Yeah, like take it slowly, like work on your foundation, building the foundation, like working on your heart and stuff like that, instead of just like jumping, like, you know, from A to Z, like right away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because if you do that, you're going to fall down because you've skipped.
Yeah, like you didn't even go through the basic stuff. I think the most important really is like just like I always mention, you know, you have to like work on your inner self.
Yeah, and go slowly but steadily.
Yes. Exactly. And like you need to also work on like healing your issues, like because you're going to bring that into Islam and it's going to affect the way you practice Islam. That's why there's so many like converts who are like really extreme, who are like bullies, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And for example, at the beginning for me, like obviously the priority was learning how to pray, and that I focused on that. Like at first, I used a notebook, and it was really funny seeing me. But yeah, when I learned that, I was so happy, like things like that, because if you want to do everything, then it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, you can want to do everything, but just don't do it all at once.
Yeah, I mean, if you try to do everything at once, no.
Yeah, like you're gonna fail. So you must do it slowly but surely. Yes. So I'm actually really interested to know, can you share like some more about Spain and the influence Islam played on your country? Like I really want to know more from someone who actually is from Spain.
Well, so Spain was under Muslim rule for 800 years. So it wasn't the whole of Spain, like all of it. It was different parts in different times. But yeah, in total, it was 800 years. So that has had a very big influence. So it was, what was in Spain before the Muslims, it was like the Visigoths, I think they're called in English. So yeah, they were in Spain in the 8th century.
Oh, wow.
And they had like a lot of internal problems as to like who is going to be king. And then this one guy went to the Muslims in what now is Morocco and told them like, hey, can you come here and help me kill this other guy? Because I want to be king. And they went and they helped him, and then they killed him.
Oh, and wow.
And it's really stupid, and you think, wow, they must have learned in Spain, like, not to call someone from another country to help them. We didn't. It happened again.
Oh my
2 centuries ago with the French. Yeah. So yeah, the Muslims came and they conquered almost everything except for the north, like a part called Asturias. Basically because it's very cold there and it rains a lot. I don't think they like that. So, yeah, they. I mean, I get it. I don't like it either. So
of course.
So yeah, at first it was an emirate. Is that the word? Yeah. So it depended in Baghdad. Like it was a bit independent, but like the religious affairs, they depended on what was being done in Baghdad. And then, so 2 centuries later, I think it was in the year 929, it became a caliphate.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, I had to look up all these words because I know them in Spanish, but I've never said them in English.
Yeah, so, of course.
And it became independent. And by that time, there was a lot of fighting with the Christian kingdoms in the north. So it was always like who gets more territory and who gets this town and who gets this other town, like a bit like that. And then the caliphate sort of disappeared, and there were little kingdoms called taifas. And that's when a lot of other towns were conquered by the Christians. And so they brought in some new guys from Morocco who conquered everything. Yeah, it's very ridiculous if you think of it like.
But I like how you're simplifying it, because I need that.
Well, it's very long. I mean, when I studied it in high school, it was like maybe a month of all of this. But yeah, so this is the simple version. So
right, that's good. We like simple. Keep it simple.
So they brought in some new guys from Morocco and then some other new guys from Morocco. But by that time, they had lost a lot of territory, and it eventually was only Granada and Malaga and Almeria, so 3 provinces in the south. And this is already the 13th century. And it stayed like that for 2 centuries until that was also conquered. And that's it. The end.
Wow. So lots of conquering.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I hope that made sense.
It made sense to me. I hope it made sense to other people.
There's a lot of influence in, for example, in food. Like there's a lot of food in North Africa that's similar to food in Spain. I didn't know that until I went to Algeria, and I was like, oh, we have that. Like, I don't know, it was really cool. Like, for example, they have a dish called garantita, which is like, it's made out of chickpeas, like chickpea flour. And it was invented by Spanish people in Algeria, and people in Spain in the south also eat it, which I think is really cool. And then we have this dish called turrón, which is sweet. We did for Christmas. And it's actually like an Arabic dish that was brought during those 800 years. And there are similar dishes in North Africa also.
Oh, that's amazing. I love always like I love how a region, like the food is similar, you know?
Yeah, and this is also really great for me because it allows me to find like halal version of dishes that I like in Spain, because they all have pork. I mean, people here love pork, so it's really tricky. I can find the halal version in North African food.
Yeah, that's so cool. So interesting.
Yeah. And then there was also like a lot of influence in literature. So, for example, the first ever piece of Spanish literature, it's called Cartas. And there were these poems written between a Muslim man and a Christian woman who were in love, and it was like a conversation between them, the poem. And they're written in a mix of Arabic and the watered down version of Latin that was being spoken, and that would eventually be Spanish.
Wow, that's crazy.
There's also a writer, the most important writer in Spain, called Cervantes, who was a slave in Algeria for 5 years. So like his experience there is also reflected in his work, and you can see a lot of influence from that. And then there's the influence in the language, the influence that Arabic had in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
So we have a lot of words that start with al or a, which comes from the article in Arabic. But in Spain, it kind of like mixed with the word, and now it's part of the word. It's not the article. We have our own article. So yeah, there are lots of words, and they sound really cool. Like, for example, pillow, it's almohada. And that's, I don't know, to me they sound really nice. Or berenjena, which is like eggplant, and all those words. Yeah, they sound a bit different from the other words. So to me, they sound fantastic.
So there's influence.
Yeah,
it sounds nice.
Yes, and then there's a lot of influence in art and architecture because of what was being built here during the Muslim period. So, like, there are a lot of mosques and palaces that are the architecture has a lot of influence from Islamic art.
Wow!
And even modern day buildings or buildings that were built after that time, they still take elements from Islamic art.
Do they even know that? Like, do they know that they're taking...
Yeah, they know that. Everybody knows that.
That's crazy. Like, they know, but they're still, like, not open to, like...
Yeah, it's...
Islam, I guess.
Yeah. The art is there, and, I mean, it looks beautiful, so why not take it?
That's so crazy. What do you think non-Muslims living in Spain can learn about the rich Islamic history it has?
Well, I think the most important thing that they have to learn is that it's also their history, you know, because a lot of people see it as us versus them sort of situation. Like, that's not our history. That's not us. Even if it happened here and the art and buildings is here, that's not us, you know, which is funny because obviously the population got mixed a lot.
Right.
So the ones that are saying, no, it's not us, you probably have Muslim ancestors. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
And also, like, the way it's taught in history class in school, it's also a bit like, that happened, but not us, you know, not our history. Which it is our history.
Oh, that's so funny. They want to, like, deny it, but they can't deny it, you know?
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, we learn about them, but they're not really us. So, I mean, learn it, but don't learn it too much.
Do they, like, teach that in school at all?
Yes, I mean, we do. We study, like, when we study the Middle Ages, we, like, they separate between the Muslim part and the Christian part. And you can see a difference in how each part is taught. Like, the Christian part is like, yeah, this is where, like, these thing nowadays come from, and these other things come from this place, but that doesn't happen with the Muslim part. Like, they just were there and they left and it's like, yeah, sure, you go ahead, live in that, honey.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And also, there were a lot of examples of tolerance between religions. So I think that's an important lesson that we all have to learn. For example, there's a city called Toledo. It's close to Madrid. And it was like, the nickname was the city of the three cultures because, like, the Christians, Jews, and Muslims lived there peacefully, and they were all friends. To put it simply. Yeah. And there was a lot of work done there to translate works from, like, Greece and Rome that had been translated to Arabic, but that had been lost in Europe. So they were being translated from Arabic back into Latin and into Spanish.
That's crazy.
Like, make them known. And it had an influence then in, like, the Renaissance, because that depended a lot on new philosophical works from antiquity being rediscovered, and they were rediscovered thanks to the fact that they had been translated into Arabic by Muslims.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. So much to learn. to the non-Muslims, there's lots of history that is part of your country.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
a lot of people would be like, no, no, no.
Were you one of those? Like, would you have said no?
I mean, not really, because I've always liked history, and to me it was interesting, and it's like, well, more things to
Yeah,
learn
and I feel
about.
like you're open-minded because you really wanted to like learn East Asian, like you
Yes.
know the languages, like and the culture, so you're more open-minded.
Yes, and in my house, like there were always a lot of books about, like I think there's one book in particular that my parents have, like about, I think it's called like what Europe owes Islam in Spain.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't read it because it focuses a lot on maths, because there were
Oh,
lots of
gosh.
scientific advances here, but I opened it once and there was way too much mathematical stuff, and I was like, yeah, no.
Turned off.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure the book is really interesting and stuff, just not for me, because
Yeah.
I no. And the guy who wrote it, he's a famous like Arabist, so like scholar of Arabic language.
Wow.
And my father met him once when he was younger. I mean, the guy was really old, like he was half deaf. But yeah, my father talked about it a lot. So that, I don't know, to me it had a positive impression. Like, yeah, those things are still part of our culture.
Oh, wow.
And there were a few like works of Arabic literature written in Spain, like during that time, that we have in my house. I haven't read them also, but they were there, and that has a positive influence,
What are some things that are similar to Islamic culture and Spanish culture? Well, you kind of touched a little bit on like the words, and I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities. Well, you sort of brought them up, but
like,
let's listen to more.
Well, like I said before, it's like the similarities are mainly with North African countries. So like there's a lot of people are really extroverted, which also happens in North Africa, and they gossip a lot, which also happens in North Africa, and this doesn't.
Yeah, that's bad.
But yeah, it's there, and like so the image of like old Spanish women gossiping at the door of their house, like it's the same in Algeria. So yeah, there's a lot of, which is not good, but yeah,
not
it's similar.
good because it's not Islamic.
Yeah, exactly. But people would be like, yeah, that's great thing.
Really?
Yeah, they're really proud of that.
Seriously?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh gosh.
And they eat sunflower seeds when they gossip.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Okay, so what about what else? Anything else? So those are like that's kind of like negative.
Yeah, well, yes, but you also have to sow negative.
Yeah, of course. I think it's important, actually.
Yes, I think there was a lot of the fact that in Islam it's so relevant, the educational aspect of like, academic, I don't know what to call it, but you get the idea. So there's a lot of importance to studying and stuff. I think that had a relevance in Spain in the Middle Ages, because like what I said before, the translating of those texts, I don't think it would have happened otherwise.
Right.
So that had a lot of influence, and it's something that has a lot of relevance today. We wouldn't have those texts right now if it weren't for that. And also the language, which it's very funny, because you would think some a language that has such an influence from Arabic, that would mean that it will be easy for Spanish speakers to learn Arabic. It's not. Absolutely not. Like, for example, the other language where Spanish comes from is Latin. And I learned Latin in high school and it was really easy for me. Arabic, it's impossible. Like, I don't know what it is about it, but it just doesn't work. So yeah, because the influence is in the words, not in the grammar. Like, the grammar is to each its own, you know?
Right.
So yeah, the vocabulary, it has a lot of rich words that come from Arabic, and there's usually like a word that comes from Arabic and a word that comes from Latin for the same thing. For example, olive, like you have a word oliva, which comes from Latin, and then you have the word aceituna, which comes from Arabic.
Right.
And they both mean the same thing. So where I'm from in the north, we say aceituna, but in the south, they say oliva.
That's so crazy. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Very similar. Very similar.
And the art, like I said before, it has had a lot of influence in later art. And for example, there was a movement during the early 19th century of doing like paintings of historical moments. And there are some of like the Muslim period, which is called Al-Andalus. I think I didn't say it before.
Mm-hmm.
Like the territory was called Al-Andalus.
Right.
So there are lots of
famous.
Yeah. There are lots of paintings reflecting that time, but always with a twinge of they're the bad guys. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, wow. So interesting.
And obviously it has had an influence on the population. Like I said, there was a lot of mixing. So that's why I go to Algeria and people think I'm Algerian.
Do you have any final thoughts about today's topic?
Well, like I said before, like Spain has a really rich history that has to do with Islam. So I invite you all to learn more about it, even if you're not Spanish. Like, it's really interesting. And I think as Muslims, we should learn about that example because in a lot of moments, it was a really good example of tolerance. I mean, in others, it wasn't. Okay, you know, it happens. But we should learn about the tolerance between religions that took place there, because it's something we all need a lot of work with as a community.
Definitely.
And the art is beautiful, so check it out.
So beautiful. I would really love to visit Spain. Like, I've actually been to Spain, but
oh really?
Yeah, like a really long time ago. I've been to Barcelona. And it was so beautiful. But obviously at that time I had no idea.
Yeah, most of the Islamic art is in the south. I haven't even seen anything either. So because in the south it's really hot, and I don't want to.
We're not about the hot.
Yeah, so, I mean, I have to go, obviously. But I haven't gone yet, so it's something I want to do too.
Please go on my behalf.
Okay, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah, so that's it?
Yes.
Okay, so Jazakallah khair for sharing with us a little bit about yourself and about Spain. It's so interesting.
My pleasure.
I feel like a lot of Muslims are really, you know, stuck in their little bubble and don't really want to go travel outside of like, you know, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And yes, while like, you know, Saudi Arabia is important to go as a Muslim because of the pilgrimages, we should still open our minds to learn more about other countries and try to visit if we can, for the sake of learning about the Islamic history, because that is actually encouraged in Islam. So
Exactly.
but obviously we need to have money to do that. So may Allah give us the money and the means to do that. So yeah, that's it for today. I really enjoyed listening to you share some important.
Well, I really enjoyed sharing it with you.
And you'll be back, inshallah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's it for today. This is Khadija and Anna signing off. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.